Hi there, James here for Knit Case Designs. Today we are going to be making a new soap for me. It is the Black Raspberry Vanilla. It's a super popular fragrance that I've never used before, but I wanted to give it a shot because why not? And it's a lovely smell. I love it. I got my fragrance oil from Nature's Garden Candle Supply. It is nice because it's a sweet smell, but thankfully it doesn't have any vanillin, so it's not going to discolor the soap at all. So we're going to be using several different colors. I've got some raspberry red mica, or raspberry mica from Brambleberry, and this is Fantasia from Nurture Soap Supplies. And then also I've got some titanium dioxide and activated charcoal. So the titanium dioxide I got from Nurture Soap. You can get it from Amazon or Brambleberry or anybody. And then the activated charcoal, that came from Amazon. I actually got this huge, so it's like vegan, fancy activated charcoal just from Amazon. And this thing is huge and it is going to last me forever. So what I have here are my blended oils. This is a mixture. It's my signature recipe. I'm not doing anything fancy today. It's coconut oil and olive oil are my two main oils. Then thirdly, coconut oil, followed by shea butter, sweet almond oil, castor oil, avocado oil, and lanolin, and did I say shea butter? Shea butter. So lots going on in here. Super great recipe. Love the way it feels on my skin. Everybody seems to really enjoy it. It's like a medium hard bar. Like I don't want like a super hard soap. Typically, obviously the longer you let it cure, the better off it's going to be in terms of hardness. Into that, I'm going to add my lye solution. So this is distilled water and lye, and then I've also got my kaolin clay in here. Kaolin clay adds like a nice like slippery texture and also like mild detoxifying property and stuff like that. So it's going to go right in, and I'm sifting it just because I don't like to have chunks of the kaolin clay. Like you can see how there's some chunks at the bottom, and like I stir it up and I use a hand blender, but it's not perfect. But this way we get all we need in there. And similarly, I mean, I'm going to scrape out this container too, but there we go. Alright. And just for general information, I'm soaping around 100 degrees. This fragrance oil says that it doesn't accelerate. I don't know that to be true. I've never used it, but I try to soap a little lower anyway, just because, I don't know. My with the lanolin that I use in my recipe, like lanolin's technically a wax, and wax tends to accelerate on its own. So I try to be pretty mindful, and I also use a water discount. I typically use about a 20% water discount, so that tends to accelerate on its own anyway. So I'm just doing a couple pulses and stirs. I don't want to go too hard because I'm going to stick blend each of the individual colors. So I'm kind of just going for emulsification, which it looks like we're about there. So I'm going to stop blending right now. Just kind of tap that off. Get out my handy dandy whisk here. Well, it's a stir spatula. Just kind of make sure that there isn't any like, wild amounts of oil that haven't been incorporated. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to separate off about half. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have sort of a diagonal setup. So I'll have this black soap in half the mold at an angle, There isn't a good way to illustrate this with my hands. And then on the other diagonal, I'll have a blend of the pink, purple, and white. So it'll be kind of a neat effect. And that's like a super simple technique that I think adds a lot of really cool effects. Alright, so we're going to add a little bit of fragrance oil. And activated charcoal is nice because it also tends to set up pretty well on its own. So I'm gonna like let this sit for, I don't know, a handful of minutes until it starts to really be solid. And then, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over here with my mold. Also, here's Charlie, my heavy turtle. He's gonna help me keep my angle today. Alright, so we are just pouring this down the side here. Oop. Don't want to go in too far. There we go. And actually I need a little bit more. I can probably get away with blending that. This fragrance oil smells really good, so anyone's interested, again, it's not super expensive. At least get a small version, try it out, see what you think. Okay. I'm just going to give this a little scrape. Put everything in there. So I'm going to let that sit there. Grab a paper towel here, clean up a little bit. I'm going to let that sit for, I don't know, probably like 15 minutes. Or at least until I think it's pretty well solid. And then we'll kind of move on. But yeah, for right now, we'll just take a pause and I will be back in a minute. Okay, so while this is still setting up, I decided I'm going to go ahead and blend in my other colors. So I'm just doing a nice little swirl here. It's going to be an in the pot swirl. So I'm going to take my purple, or my Fantasia, and raspberry, and I'm going to give them a nice stir. I don't think I'm going to stick blend these, because I don't think I really need to. Activated charcoal can get kind of clumpy, so I like to do it. But for these, I think giving them a nice stir is good enough. I've been watching a lot of tutorials lately on different soaps, and I mean, I've watched people make this soap a million times, and so I think this is a fresh take, but I mean, that's the thing about soap design is like, the way I like to think about it is, I like my soaps to be really indicative of kind of what the fragrance is. So I sit and I think about, okay, well, this fragrance, you know, is for spring or fall or summer, and then I think about my color palette, if I want any additives, how I generally, want to design it. Like, do I want it kind of angled, something like this, or do I want it just to be like a straight swirl? Do I want it to be something special? Do I want it to be a different shape? And then designs just kind of come from there. So, I mean, like, if you're new to cold process soap making, I mean, it can be kind of intimidating. I think especially what, makes people nervous is working with lye. But as long as you're safe, wear your goggles, wear your gloves, soap in a well-ventilated area, you're generally going to be fine. This, I'm probably going to stick blend because titanium dioxide does not like to be smooth. Not a fan. Oops, some bubbles in there. Titanium dioxide makes me nervous sometimes just because it also tends to accelerate. I don't think it'll be a huge deal in this soap. Just because, I mean, this fragrance oil seems to be behaving like super well, which is awesome. In fact, I feel like this fragrance oil even kind of like slows down your trace. Which, I mean, that's another weird thing about, these fragrance oils is that sometimes they slow down your trace, sometimes they accelerate your trace. I had a soap that I made, and I was using Monkey Farts from Nature's Garden. I've used that thing so many times, and there was one time I was using it, I was soaping around the usual temperature that I soap around, and I don't know what happened, it started accelerating, and then suddenly it was seizing, and I was like, oh god. And it was a nightmare. Turned out fine. The soap was super difficult to work, but then it got to a nice point where I was able to kind of use it like dough, almost. And I sort of made it into like this composite, artsy, sort of gross amalgamation of stuff. It was fun. So here you can see that this trace is getting a little further along. So we're now sitting at a pretty light to medium trace, whereas these are still kind of sitting at a very light trace. And of course when I say trace, I'm referring to, like when you can lift the batter out and it traces a little line across the top of the soap. In a light trace to do an emulsion, that line will just kind of like blend back in, but in a more medium based trace, like you'll get more of a stand-up line, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pour these in though, just to kind of move things along. And if this starts to set up really fast, I'm just going to have to pour it in and hope for the best. That's what you got to do as a soap maker too, is kind of, you plan for the best, but, well, what is it? You hope for the best, you plan for the worst. Thankfully, this isn't something that I think is going to be completely destroyed if we don't do it perfectly. So I'm just kind of plopping these in here. I'll save a little bit for the top, I think. Well, I don't know. Well, let's go all in. That's another thing. I'm not super big on just like hammering out my designs like immediately. Like if things change on the fly, I actually kind of prefer that. I don't like things to be too regimented. So we'll just... And don't worry, I will go in here with like a chopstick or one of these little tools and clean it up. give it a little swirl. So come in from around, give it a little swirly swirl. Give it a little nice crisscross. You don't want to blend it too much because then your colors are just going to kind of meld together and then it's going to look kind of gross. So, but for right now, that's perfect. So this has set up, and you can see it's holding its angle. I don't know if you can really see. So it's holding its angle pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I'm going to keep it on a little bit of an angle. And I'm going to use a spatula as like a buffer. And I'm going to start adding our colored soap. And if it cooperates, like it's not cooperating, it hopefully won't break that diagonal too badly. So I'm just kind of trying to smooth it out. Yeah, that white accelerates like crazy. But I think the soap's going to turn out fine anyway. So I'll take it now off, move Charlie out of the way. Thanks, Charlie. Oops, sorry. I had a timer going for my set. So I'm just going to take some soap and try and fill in these edges a little bit. And something like this, I don't really want to tap it down too much because that might break the diagonal that we have. And I want to kind of keep that fluid. By fluid, I mean solid. Words. With the extra soap, I'm going to pour it into a smaller mold. When I find a smaller mold. When in doubt, there's Tupperware. For the leftover soap, I usually just use it at home, so it's not like this is going to go to waste. Man, those colors are fun though, huh? This I will give a little tap, a little tippy tap. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is take my chopstick and my extra soap batter. I'm just going to sort of drizzle on the top. Drizzle. Same with I love this raspberry color. Oh man. Brambleberry knew what they were doing. Alright, so I'll take my chopstick and I'll just do like a, swirly swirl. Nothing too fancy. And then I think what might go really nicely on this is like some gold mica. Just like a pinch. And so let me find my gold mica. Okay, so this is King's Gold Mica from Brambleberry. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab so I grabbed a little deal here. Little eyedropper. And I'm loving the little like smatter that's happening. And then I'm just gonna kind of blow on it a little bit, honestly. So blowing on it just kind of gets rid of some of the excess, spreads the others around, and you get kind of this like gorgeous shine. I don't know if you can even really see how shiny that is. Oh, gorgeous. So from now, I'm just going to clean up and get everything put together and probably take some photos. But I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. Well, it's not really a tutorial, it's more of just a making of demo video, right? But if you're interested in learning more about, you know, where I get my colors or my fragrance oils or my actual oils or whatever, just let me know in the comment section. You can also follow me on Instagram. We're pretty active. We do lots of stuff. So, gonna clean up. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for the next one.